Hey, how's it going? Welcome into the Irish NFL show. Welcome to Mark. Hello, Mark. How are you? Eating pizza again?
Still eating, Michael. Still eating.
Oh man, eat like Ezekiel
I'm just,
Elliott,
I'm
man.
just like Ezekiel Elliott after a long run. Just feed me, feed me, feed me.
Feed me. Colin Cronin, Mark Cockerell, Brian O'Leary in tow, I presume. He may be here ASAP. Michael McQuaid ahead of two Monday Night Football games tonight, presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange and also Trust Gaming. Um, I'm really tired, Colin. Do you want to do some talking?
Yeah, well, that's because you are in getting used to different time zone, Michael, having obviously been at the game yesterday with the Ravens and the Packers, and what an ending to that game. And I think one of the craziest things is, despite that ending that we saw there yesterday, it wasn't the wildest game in the NFL. I think you looking at it today, it could have gone Ravens Packers, could have gone with the Saints shutting out Tom Brady for the first time in 255 games. Mark should be able to confirm all of the Tom Brady stats. And obviously, though, for me, I think the story of the weekend is the Lions and their performance.
Yeah, 255 games, Column. Third time he's shut out, always by a divisional rival. Dolphins did it to him, Bills did it to him, and now the Saints. What a shocker that game was in so many ways. Bucks obviously losing a lot of players, and we'll see how that affects them in the playoff run, obviously, in terms of how many of them get back to full fitness. But yes, the Lions are the story of the day. Big highlight for me on Red Zone this week. Wesley scores a touchdown, and Scott Hansen, as we know and love him, breaks out a Princess Bride reference, bang on cue. It was just perfect. I think it was Wesley. Inconceivable was what he actually said. So big props as always to Scott Hansen for those off the cuff moments when we're all watching Red Zone with him. But yeah, look, it wasn't the most fascinating sequence of games, but just those ones the columns mentioning are impressive in themselves. Can't wait to also talk to you two gents in particular about how many games should Bradley Chubb be banned for, given his antics at the weekend. But look, we'll come to that in due course, I'm sure.
I think the plan originally was to go live because I was in the States on Sunday morning. I'm so disappointed we didn't because my God, I'm saying nothing now. If I say something, I'll get in trouble. But we'll, we'll keep it for next week. Yeah, like just very quickly, what Colin was saying over in the States here was at a game last night, the Ravens Packers game. Seen Tony Dungy, and we'll talk about this in more detail down the stretch. Seen Tony Dungy last night saying, "Oh yeah, it was great for Harbaugh to go for two." I tell you what, if you heard that stadium when they went for two and missed. Going to the game tonight after this, going to drop off in like an hour and go down and watch Justin Fields. Yeah, please say Justin Fields is playing. Yeah, and Kirk Cousins battle it out in a NFC North showdown. But let's try and look at some of these games first off. The first one from last night, the Saints against the Bucks. Colin, last night, I'll openly say this. I was playing Mark Hogan in fantasy, and he had Leonard Fournette, Godwin, um, and I had Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. And midway through the third quarter, I thought to myself, yeah, surely Tom Brady will get it going now. Tom Brady last night was atrocious. And there is no, like, obviously the Saints defense was superb, but he was like a kid in a toy shop that had like a euro and his mom wouldn't give him 20 cents to get something. That's what he was like. The way he acted last night. Um, I know he'll probably come back. We've seen is it Godwin that's now out for the season with a torn ACL? Have I got that correct, lads? Yeah.
Regular, certainly out for the regular season with a sprained MCL.
MCL.
Potentially might be available for the playoffs, but nobody's entirely sure as yet.
Don't wear red SCL. I could have sworn I seen it on Twitter. But look, obviously, fantastic performance for the Saints. And the guy that was in for Sean Payton, that's something to add to your CV column, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and what a just a ferocious performance from the Saints. Kudos to them, um, in terms of the performance that their defense put in. It was just fantastic. they just didn't give Brady any time whatsoever. If you heard Cam Jordan afterwards, if you saw some of the Saints players, they were loving the fact that Brady took some time out to venture over to their sideline and offer some Christmas greetings. I think maybe they were playing Secret Santa and he was wondering what he should get for Sean Payton. But the Saints have their number when it comes to the regular season, 0-4. Obviously, the offseason is where it all really is. But I saw something earlier that said that the Bucs didn't have a snap inside the Saints red zone. The closest that they came was the 35-yard line. That is just phenomenal. And there's a lot of talk at times in the NFL about coming up with blueprints to beat teams, but it's only a blueprint to beat a team if you actually beat the team and if you completely shut them down. And that's what the Saints did. It's going to be a really interesting run-in for them. We had actually been discussing it whether, I think, was that yesterday, that it's almost like there's no dominant force, and we'll talk about the Packers in a little bit, but there's nobody who you really fear. Like, it really is a season where anyone can beat anyone, and I imagine the Saints must be wishing that they had a QB, because I don't think anyone is, if they make the playoffs, nobody's going to want to go up against that defense.
Yeah, it's we welcome in Brian, obviously. So I'll let him warm to the room and just continue on that theme. We're used to the Saints having standout performers. Like, we thought this was going to be a Lattimore shutting down Mike Evans type of game and seeing what else Brady could do with his other weapons. But they were dominant on all three levels of the game. In the line, linebackers were everywhere, and the secondary was just all over. I think the closest the Bucs came was Tom Brady, of course, fumbling the ball forward when he suddenly thought he was Lamar Jackson for a brief, inopportune moment. And of course, the Saints didn't do very much on offense, and the Bucs defense kept them in and around the game. But the scoreline is the scoreline, like 9-0, with no excuse on conditions, no excuse on anything else. I mean, Tom Brady, MVP season at age 44, RIP. There's no way he's getting the MVP after that performance that late in the season. Maybe, Colin, your wish will come true, and we will finally have a winner of the most valuable quarterback in the first time since Adrian Peterson in 2012, who is a running back by the name of Jonathan Taylor. But for me, this was a little bit about the weekend of unexpectedly strong defense. I mean, the Saints' defense has been good. They haven't been that dominant in their previous games. The Colts' defense on Saturday night, I underestimated. I thought the Pats would have enough to get by. They were fantastic against the Patriots. And even though they don't have a quarterback, all you get people talking about today is, well, geez, do you want to face Indiana in the playoffs? because they've got that great O-line, they've got Jonathan Taylor, and they've got a super defense there as well. I mean, we all know Carson Wentz and 5'12" is a different matter. Same thing with Taysom Hill, the tight end turned running back turned quarterback in various ways. But, all credit to the Saints. They are the green krypton to Tom Brady's Superman when it comes to the regular season, at least. Of course, last year's postseason game rings true a little bit stronger for him, I'm sure. But I think I remember the stat. Drew Brees is one of only two quarterbacks who had a regular season kind of winning record against Tom Brady of at least 3 games. So the Saints long had a hoodoo over Tom Brady in many ways, but the Houday definitely have the hoodoo without any voodoo going on.
I wonder does put Dennis Allen back in the shop window for a potential opportunity to be a head coach again, because he's done it twice this year in terms of shutting Brady down. We also discussed during the season, when Brady doesn't have his trusted players, he struggles. And he lost a lot of them in this game, and obviously then they're reliant on Gronk. And outside of Gronk, who is he going to go to? 4 sacks, 1 fumble, and an interception. I mean, it's a long time since we've seen those type of numbers. And Saints offensively, they didn't do anything in the game. They ran for 61 yards, missing 2 tackles. It looked like a shoe-in beforehand, but yeah, you pretty much summed it up. The Saints seem to have his number. And even in that playoff game last year, a lot of people felt that the Saints threw that one away. They were driving in the second half with a lead, and they had a score instead of fumbling. Who knows? So, look, the Bucks will be thereabouts, but it's a big swing in terms of the order of magnitude for the playoffs. Like Cowboys have jumped up to number 2, which was, I'm not sure they'll stay there, but the Bucks have dropped right down.
Just for anybody watching on YouTube tonight, there seems to be some sort of technical difficulties. I don't know if that's, to try and stop Fred from commenting on the Cowboys game, but genuinely, I don't know what the problem is. Sorry about that, folks. Colin was actually in control of the buttons, so I don't know what's going on, Colin, but it's okay. It's fine.
It's about as successful as Ole at the wheel, Michael.
I think it's okay in terms of Facebook. I'll double check, let people know. In terms of what wasn't okay, that Bucks offense last night. I mean, you got Rob Gronkowski and Scotty Miller out there. Obviously, really relies on numerous different people, including veterans like Antonio Brown. Can't wait to see who he's going to bring in. Does he want Ocho Cinco? Let's bring somebody else back in now and try and keep it going, Tom.
And I think the head coach has kind of slightly juggled his words today in terms of the Antonio Brown return, because he said he was going to be dealt with upon his return. Now he's welcoming him back into the fold. No surprise there. Yeah, you were discussing it as I came on. It actually has been confirmed in the last hour that Godwin is gone for the season, not just the regular season. Gone. Done. Shut down. God bless.
I found it hilarious in the first half last night as well, Brian. Taysom Hill pretending to be a proper quarterback. I'm joking. Like, just throwing the ball.
He threw last week against the Jets, fairness.
I know, but it was just funny. Primetime football, Taysom Hill, you're thinking, right, run the ball 60, 70 yards. But it wasn't a classic. And just again, thank you, Tom Brady. You find ways to screw me in ways that I never thought you could. So appreciate that. And I regret slagging Brian for winning in his bye week in the fantasy semi-finals.
I did.
That's not talking about fantasy football.
Michael, I did see that on his post-game presser. Actually, he specifically called out and said, and I want to apologise to all the fantasy owners, especially Michael McQuaid, for screwing him over. So he cares. He cares, Tom.
I know you don't care about fantasy. Let's
can I make one more point? Godwin's injured this season. He's actually a free agent now, and I'm not sure whether they'll franchise him again this year. I don't think he's lived up to the expectations this year. So that tends to happen after a big drop off from the Super Bowl. He's been good, but not to the level of maybe last year. But will he get the money he'll be looking for? I suppose that's an interesting one to come.
I'm sure Tom will find a way. The most interesting thing yesterday was the Lions beating the Cardinals, and not just beating the Cardinals, like they had them. And the way, I don't want to give away my pick for next week already, but I've seen that the Lions are playing. They're playing someone next week, and I'm like, they're going to win that game. In Atlanta. I think the camaraderie, Colin, with this Lions team is fantastic to watch. Great game for the Lions. I mean, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. Where do we start here? They were 10-3 coming into this. What I don't want to say the word, but what a messed up situation they've now landed themselves in, especially for season.
Yeah, the Cards just looked completely out of sorts yesterday. It wasn't a fluke result. This wasn't like the underdog kind of manages to get ahead and just kind of is begging for the game to end. They could be still playing now, and the Lions will be still putting up points. This was a fantastic performance from the Lions, and if you look. There have been a lot of kind of film breakdown that I've seen today, the way in which the Lions went about their business. They anticipated, they knew what the Cards were going to look to do on offense, and they took it away. So I thought that it was really, really impressive. You saw the comments afterwards in the locker room and the camaraderie that is there. From what I saw, Mina Kimes tweet, so that the Cards defense has to face Jonathan Taylor, which is going to be quite something. They are going to need a serious bounce back. Obviously, I mean the loss to the Rams, given the way in which they came back, and ultimately you felt it was the penalties that really cost them, and you expected them to bounce back against the Lions, and maybe they were a little bit overconfident, but the Lions have definitely grown as the season has gone on, and they've bought into the Dan Campbell his methods and his coaching, and you would just have to say it was a really, really solid performance for the Lions. And they executed, they did everything that they wanted to do. And it will be, Michael, you're right, like it will be interesting to see how they can go on to finish the season and whether they can use this as a kind of a springboard for 2022.
I look back at last season, and we discussed it in the season preview show in terms of the Cardinals bringing in experienced players are supposed to alleviate the concern around how they finished the season last year. They won 3 of their last 6 games. They dropped off and essentially lost that playoff on the last day, but it was there for them last year. I wonder if we're going to see something similar this year, because the Rams are obviously now coming with a bit of a run, having beaten them last week and won the week before that. They're going up against a Colts team this weekend. Will be on a crest of a wave after winning it the weekend. So if they were to lose this game, 3 games in a row, essentially handing over the divisional lead potentially to the Rams, having only last week looked like they were definitely in the run to be the number 1 seed. It's a huge fall off. The Cardinals defense, we haven't touched on it much this season. We speak more about the Chargers, how much they can struggle against the run. Last week, I thought Sony Michel on Monday night had a really good game for the Rams, and we didn't expect much of him when he went off from the Patriots. Saw similar stuff yesterday from the Lions. Great win for the Lions. The aftermath in the dressing room was fantastic to see, and yeah, certainly they're rallying behind the city and Dan Campbell in particular. What's happened over the past few weeks for that incident in the area, and then obviously since then they've really put things together. Like in terms of the team we saw when they played the Bears on Thanksgiving, as opposed to what we saw yesterday and previous games against the Vikings, it's a bit of a turnaround. So great win. Cardinals have a lot to think about, especially this game on Christmas Day now, to use game against the Colts.
Brian, I won't hear any blasphemy against Sony Michel, an integral part to one of the Patriots' Super Bowl victories.
The only touchdown scorer in that particular Super Bowl, Mark.
Well, I mean, the only touchdown, exactly, and a great performance in all of those games against the Chargers and the Chiefs earlier in the run as well. Roberto Duran, though, as I keep saying, Sony Michel, is hands of stone. Can't catch a flare pass, screen pass, anything out of the backfield to save his bloody life. But tough runner, and performed well for the Rams the other week. I mean, I take it one stage further for the Cards. It's not just the Colts game that's a problem. The game after that is the Cowboys. It doesn't get any easier. They finished the season with the Seahawks. You'd like to think they win, but, it's a divisional game. So it's always tested, to say the least, easily. Go on a 4-game losing streak. And we saw it a little bit with Pittsburgh last year. 10-0, 11-0, bit untested, lots of question marks about them. And then they had a massive late season swoon. You said with the Cards before, we saw it last season. Is this another late season swoon? This game was inexcusable to lose, especially those other 2 games coming up. It was absolutely inexcusable. The performance was inexcusable. They did not show up. I mean, all credit to the Lions. I mean, where were they hide version of Jared Goff? Had he been hiding under the floorboards for the rest of the season? Because you watch him in that game, you who was the bloke they were wheeling out for the other 14 games of the season?
Mark, you no longer have that cupboard behind you. So were you hiding him there and he escaped?
I was. Yeah, I replaced Gronk with Jared Goff for a while, and I kept his doppelganger on the field. But here's the irritating thing for the Lions. You see a game like that, and it's almost like that temptation, like the Rams have so long. It's like, he could do this. We could build around him. This could work. It's like, don't get sucked into it. He's not the answer. It's like, that toxic relationship you keep getting drawn back to, trying to convince yourself around it. It's just not happening. It's just not happening. But fantastic performance. They definitely play well. They like their coach. He may be building something there, but a long way to go still. But you've got to enjoy these moments when they come up. Fair play to the Lions and Cards. What is happening? It's a genuine concern.
Yeah, like the Cardinals are reminding me of the time I was sitting scared watching the Panthers against the Cardinals 6 years ago. No, I don't want to jinx anything. Well, I don't really have any connection to the Cardinals. One and done. Like they're screaming at the minute, boys. They don't like how he played behind Hopkins yesterday. Like is mad. I actually have something for Brian here and for everybody. You've probably seen this, Brian. There's a bit of breaking news about Daniel Jones. Yeah, do you want to tell us all what's going on?
Well, it probably doesn't come as a surprise. He's been declared finished for the season. You said it a couple of weeks back, Michael. You felt he'd be gone. That seems to be the general consensus of the weeks have gone on. Disc issues in the back of his neck. I mean, I don't know if you remember it. David Wilson, running back, that was drafted in the first round with the Giants, and he ended up finishing his career after 2 years at the Giants with a similar injury. So it doesn't bode well for the future. And can you rely on him? Can you take a chance? You won't be getting the 5th-year option contract, but he'll be getting, as in they won't be picking up to 21 million. But he could have played his last game. Who knows? I was just going to make the point.
Cardinals, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. You said it a few weeks ago, Michael, and I kind of agree with you. Like, the Cardinals do strike you as a team that will get into the playoffs and make that step into the playoffs, which we were close to getting last year, and then quickly be seeing you, after the wild card round, And sorry, on the Lions, I just wanted to say, are the Lions doing the Jets? Sorry, are they doing it? Jets of last year. Number 1 seed potentially wrapped up, and all of a sudden win a couple of games, and oh God, here we go. We'll end up picking somewhere else in the draft.
Well, I mean, who enjoyed yesterday more? Was it the people at Lambeau Field and Packers fans who now seem like they're the only class act in the NFL? I'd go as far as to say that. Or was it, in fact, conversely, Jaguars fans who somehow went from 3rd pick in the draft to 1st? I mean, you've got to see the silver lining in every cloud, guys, don't you?
Well, there is a silver lining in Detroit. Well, it's not really a silver lining. It's more like a dark lining, a depressive lining. Jared Goff has just been placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. Breaking news. That's why I was going, lad. So there you go. That's from Rat Sheet himself. So I'd love to see what the over-under line is for the Falcons game on Sunday now. But I go by the NFL protocols.
You're still picking the Lions there now. That changes things.
Probably. I'll see how awake I am come Sunday. But yeah, that's breaking news. Mark, I sort of took you out of your point there. Have you anything else to add, or just happy eating the Pringles? Or all good?
Well, while Mark is chewing, one thing I would say is that, Brian, maybe they are taking themselves, down the draft, but the difference to the Jets from last year is that Dan Campbell is there next year. So they are looking to kind of set that winning culture, whereas the Jets knew there was going to be a change and moving on from Adam Gase. So I imagine if you're Dan Campbell, you're looking to get as many wins as you can, because their roster is such that they are going to need to bring other people in free agency, and you want to be able to say, look, we are building something.
They've also got two first-round picks in the draft, and this draft is heavy on defensive ends. Like there's stories and conversations out there. You could take one of the top 3 or 4, and you'll be satisfied with everyone drops to you. And they're still going to be picking top 5. So maybe it isn't too concerning for them to be winning games at this stage of the season.
The next game we're going to look at is the Packers against the Ravens. Packers win 31-30. Packers were up the column 1 point by 2 scores. Ravens came back and took it within 1 point. And Harbour, for the second week in a row, went for 2. And it wasn't successful. What was your thoughts on this game? Because I think a lot of people thought it might have been not a dead rubber, but they thought because Lamar Jackson was going to be out, it might not have been as exciting. But Tyler Huntley certainly proved those people wrong.
Yeah, I'd seen Huntley in Chicago a few weeks ago, and he's a very solid backup. And what they have done is they've been smart in that they have gotten a guy who plays a similar fashion to Lamar. So they don't have to totally change things up. Hi, Denver. So when your backup comes in, they're going to run a similar system, similar plays. And what you would say about Tyler Huntley is he went toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers in a shootout and was able to hang about. Hi, Denver. And, that is pretty impressive from a young guy who probably won't be with the Ravens perhaps, but I could definitely see him getting a shot to potentially start at some point in the future. I mean, look, for Harbaugh, obviously coming in back-to-back weeks, there'll be questions. But when you consider that, more than 1/3 of their entire salary cap is gone on IR, the job he's doing there, and to go up against that Packers team that are clinched yet another divisional title under Matt LaFleur. And Mark talked about the other day, they're not allowed to lose another game, but they might actually go 14-3 just with the extra game this year. So look, I think I can understand the frustrations of the Ravens fans who are there. In some ways, that's the kind of coach Harbaugh is. He's going to roll the dice, and sometimes it will work and sometimes it won't. But when you consider what he's working with this year and what their record is, I think he's doing a heck of a job. But yeah, the Packers look like, in this year's NFL, they look the team at the moment. But this is the 2021 NFL season. All things are possible.
So I read a report today to say Harbaugh is great and you should admire him for his conviction to, because that's what he believes in. You go for 2 points. Doesn't mean he's right, though. I mean, 2 weeks ago, he went for it because he felt, or the story was he felt that his offense wasn't playing well. Lamar Jackson wasn't playing that well, and they did get the ball in overtime. They wouldn't be able to move it. But yesterday, they were moving it pretty much the entirety of the game, by and large. So why wouldn't you take overtime and fight for another day? And you've still got the best kicker in the league, arguably, who can kick you a winning field goal in overtime. And we spoke about it. I think we spoke about it in too much detail, and maybe used it on the show that I wasn't on the weekend. But on Thursday night, Staley left 9 points behind, going for it on 4th down 3 times. But on the first drive of the game yesterday, the Ravens went for it on 4th down and left 3 points behind. Those 3 points there could have turned that game. So people are just stats this and new analytics this. It doesn't work. It doesn't necessarily work all the time because they've lost 2 games over the past 2 weeks that potentially they might have come out at 1-1 and it could be in a very different situation because now they lost 3 in a row now. The Ravens, it's going to be 3 Steelers last week against the Browns, this week against the Packers. I mean, they could have been taking 1 or maybe 2-1 out of those 3 games if they had went a different route. But he is a great coach, and most teams in the league and most fans would love to have him as their head coach. But there has to be a time when you have to hold your hands up and say that's not the right thing to do.
Look, let's not get away from the fact that until inexplicably the Packers let the Ravens back into this game in some respects. Like, they were dominant all over the field. And to me, they have shown themselves this season to be the most complete football team so far in the season. I keep saying, let's see it in January. And I still think Aaron Rodgers is an ass. But still, we will see how this team and whether they stay a team in January when the heat really goes on. But so far, so good. Guiding in on that number 1 seed, Bucks losing, every other result going their way, happy days. But now it's time for maths lesson on the Irish NFL show. So we're going to start with a basic probability challenge. So you ever heard of the game show challenge before, gents? All right, I'm going to give you 3 doors.
I have now.
You have now. I'm going to give you 3 doors, A, B, and C. Behind one of these doors is a brand new car. Behind the other 2 are goats. Okay? Which door are you going to pick?
But when you say goats, Tom Brady's in behind one of those doors.
No. Well, I mean, of course, he's the goat. But no, we'll just go with the Billy Goat version. So which door are you going?
I'll go whatever door is left over after the 2 lads go in.
Just pick one door, guys. This isn't this fucking difficult.
Door A.
Door A. Sorry. Door A. Okay, I'm going to show you behind door number C that there's a goat. So now I'm going to come back to you, Brian, and give you a choice. Do you change from door A to door B? I'm going to give you the choice. You can change if you want.
Thanks very much.
Do you change?
No.
Well, that's the incorrect answer. Because actually, by changing, you increase your probability by 33%. Because there was a 66% chance that it was behind one of the other 2 doors, so you should always switch. People don't. It's the deal or no deal thing. You should always switch. Always switch. Increase your probability by 33%. John Harbaugh, it was John Harbaugh. I'm trying to remember which Harbaugh was coaching last night. Did a right decision in going for a 2-point conversion, but at the wrong time. Analytics and the right statistics say he should have gone for it when they went and scored their first touchdown. Because if they get it on their first touchdown, then they only got to get another touchdown and kick the extra point. If they don't get it, they've still got another go at a 2-point conversion to actually tie the game and go to overtime. And there's only been one coach, I remember seeing it earlier this season, where they've actually made the right analytical decision in that regard. So, yes, you should go for 2, but on the first, when you're coming back from 14 points down, not on the second. It's stats analytics, that works. That's just the right call, the wrong time.
Sorry, Michael, can I make one more quick point? Mark Andrews had a great game yesterday. Packers never, at some stages thought the Packers were a double team when they didn't, and they just continued to let them basically dominate. But everybody today, or people at the time watching it, could see they were actually went over and had a conversation with Andrews before the 2-point play. I mean, the Packers knew where it was going. Like, if ever was the time to change it up, that was the opportunity.
Oh, one other point on that. I want to see the coach's film when it comes out on Game Pass, but it did look like someone was coming free along the back line in that. Huntley zoned in on
Marquise
Andrews.
Brown was free.
Marquise Brown. It was Marquise Brown coming along the back line. But, I mean, it would have been a good throw to get it to him, but it was definitely possible, far more so than Andrews in the circumstances. So coulda, woulda, shoulda, I guess, but still.
Couple of things just before I talk about the game. First off, we distance ourselves from the language used by Mark Cockerell, the Irish NFL show with no affiliation with the National Football League. I want to joke. I did also promise lads, the owner of the Technology Cafe in Navan, we give him a shout out. He was very generous to us letting him use his cafe in September. It seems like a long time ago. Was it week 4? Maybe October. Obviously, if you're going to try and get something for Christmas next weekend, folks, try and shop local. Technology Cafe, I would put the promo up, but I haven't got the graphic on me. Some great products there at the minute, and we're obviously proudly presented by Trust Gaming as well. And thank you very much to the lads down in Navan there. In terms of, you were talking about Mark Andrews there, like 2 or 3 things stood out to me yesterday watching the game, and being there. He is built like a proverbial shithouse. He is, and there's no other way of coming away from it. I know when I thought, you know what, if he's going to do it, I'm going to do it. But he is, and that's what I said to the person beside me whenever I seen him. He's huge, but not just that. He's unreal. He's so good. Anything I've ever said negatively about Aaron Rodgers, I now take back. That man's an absolute G. After seeing him in person, he's so cool. He's so good. But in terms of the 2-point thing, I don't agree with whatsoever. You see, guys, I said it, I think, when Colin was here before you boys came in. See Tony Dungy yapping on last night about how good of a decision it was. I mean, just take the point and go to overtime. Saying, but it's a coin flip. But you're giving yourself a chance. Like, there's a chance the Packers, if they get the coin flip, go down and hit a field goal. Like this whole stuff about just go for it now and get over with it. Why is the voice on at 8 o'clock? Have you got a pizza coming at 8:30 or something? Just play on. It's really, really frustrating. But in terms of the actual situation there and then, like you're saying there about the Packers knew what was going on, the Ravens lined up to go for the 2-point conversion. And I would speculate that there was as much as 25 or 30 seconds went by where Huntley came in and out. And you're sort of thinking, are they going for it? What's going on? I don't know. I don't think it was a timeout, but or something happened. And when they ran back on again, there was, in the area I was sat in, there was confusion. There was people going, oh my God, they're actually going for it. Hold on here. Like, what are they at? I can only compare the situation when it wasn't successful to that of a wake where somebody walks in and they shouldn't be there. And people visibly upset. I don't know what the hell Harvey was at. I don't agree with. I thought it was good last night, but I don't agree with it now.
Sorry, Michael. I think you just might explain exactly what you're talking about there, because there's actually a report literally gone in on the phone where Harbaugh has come out today at the press conference and said he went for it because the players told him to go for it. They felt they could get the winner. And that might kind of row in what you're saying there around the back and forth. He thought they were going for the extra point. The players obviously went off and said, come on, we fancy the 2-point here. That could lead.
There's definitely a momentum swing, absolutely. And there was definitely a feeling that they could do it, but I would have went to overtime.
Yeah. So 2 quick things on that, Michael. I mean, they obviously lined up trying to get the Packers to jump offside to get the extra yard closer, and that was all planned. They'd take the time out, then go over. And as Brian said, then Harbaugh said, like, no, then the players convinced that we should go for it. We shouldn't just fake it. We should actually go for it. But you mentioned the point there was still 42 seconds left on the clock, and the Packers, I think, had all 3 timeouts left, or at least had a couple of timeouts left. Kicking the point didn't guarantee overtime. And the other thing that always goes unmissed with these 2-point attempts to win the game you've still got one more chance, and it's a small possibility, I know, but you've still got the chance of collecting the onside kick with the best kicker in the game, of course. So it's not like it's completely dead and buried in relation to it. As I say, they should have gone for it, but on the first touchdown, not the second touchdown. That's what it was all about.
And Michael, sometimes on the show you point out about QBs you'd like to see in Denver. I would love Harbaugh in Denver. He would be phenomenal. Just to highlight what the Ravens were missing yesterday was their starting quarterback, their top 3 running backs, one of their starting wide receivers, Pro Bowl fullback, Pro Bowl left tackle, starting left guard, starting right tackle, Pro Bowl D-line, starting D-line, 2 of their Pro Bowl cornerbacks, and their top 2 safeties. And they still come up with a performance. And everybody deals with injuries, absolutely. But it's how you deal with injuries and how you do it. And so some of that definitely factors into, I think, Harbaugh's decision is, I just need to get these guys off the field because I can't risk any more injuries. What am I going to have to field? And look, the Packers stood up to it. Baltimore is not an easy place to go and get a result. And it looks like, probably more set than the AFC. All roads go through Lambeau to go to the Super Bowl.
Colin, if he keeps going for these,
sorry, go ahead.
If he keeps going for these 2-point conversions, he won't need those players in January. That's for sure.
I look at no, you're fine. It's just there's a bit of a delay on my side. I look at Tyler Huntley and the way he's played the last 2 weeks, and I ask myself, do I give Lamar Jackson $23 million next year? We can talk about that for 7 months, but yeah. The next game is the Steelers against the Titans. Did you know Ben Roethlisberger has never lost his first home game after a live-action movie starring Spider-Man being released? 2004, 2007, 2012, 2014, 2017, 2019, and now 2021. All I can think of is Mike Vrabel's face. So many memes, but Steelers get it done, Colin.
Yeah, well, in the long list of head coaches I'd love to see in Denver, Mike Tomlin is a magician. Again, what he's been able to kind of get out of that Steelers side, the defense showed up. We've talked about it. I think, look, losing Derrick Henry is an enormous blow. He's the best running back in the league. He was on course for an incredible year, obviously. But Tannehill looks all out of sorts. He really does. And said that they give up sacks in spurts. If you get to Tannehill early, it just seems to rock him completely. Obviously not helped by the injuries and Julio picking up another injury yesterday. But it's got to be enormously frustrating. They fumbled 5 times and lost 3 of them, and obviously the interception as well. The Steelers offense has all sorts of issues, and it was field goals and the defense that won the day for them. But going up against a division leader, they got it done. I thought, going into the game with their backs to the wall and in Pittsburgh, they would do it, and so it proved. But for the Titans, they cannot get Derrick Henry back quick enough, and the end of the regular season cannot come quick enough, because if it went on for another few weeks, the Colts would potentially be in with a good shot of catching them. They were about to stumble over the line, but they might get quite the shot in the arm if Derrick Henry can come back. It was funny, when they were at the beginning in the yesterday, and they were kind of in the ascendancy. All the commentary was around, this is fantastic, and imagine what this side is going to be like with Derrick Henry. They'll, another dimension. They desperately need him back, because right now they're without any dimension.
Said earlier in the weekend, it was Thursday show, I felt this weekend was quite significant in the AFC. I picked Chiefs, I picked the Colts, and I picked the Steelers here, because I just felt, having watched the highlights again of that Titans game last week against the Jags, 20-0, but offensively they didn't do very much, and that's pretty much the Collins point. They don't seem to be playing the way they were earlier in the season. You know, when Derrick Henry went down, they had that big game in LA, but I think as the season's progressed, you know, a player like Derrick Henry, you're out to miss him. I thought what was really impressive was the fact that, I know it's not a massive score to be down by 10 points, but Steelers' season is a bit up and down. They're down by 10 points. A lot of players could have just said, look, this is gone. We're playing against a team going for the number one seed. They didn't. They kept going, and that's more so, I suppose, because of the coach that they have. And look, the game could have played out as it thought. Didn't see a high-scoring game. Didn't see the Steelers putting up huge numbers either. I just felt they would grind it out. And, you know, no more grind than a fourth down at the end where it's inches in terms of whether it's a fourth down or not. And yeah, Mike Vrabel's face was something to behold. But a big win for the Steelers, and the Titans just need to keep an eye on that Colts team coming very quickly behind them.
Yeah, shorn of weapons behind a leaky offensive line. Ryan Tannehill looked a lot like Tom Brady yesterday. That's one of the rare occasions you mentioned the two of them in the same sentence, other than Ryan Tannehill beating Tom Brady in the playoffs. I'll say it before any of you do. But look, the Titans are hobbling, squeaking, bumbling, stumbling along. I just concur with what Colin said. Like, this is one to give all the credit to Mike Tomlin, what he's patching together there. They've had injuries to beat the band on their defensive side all through the season, bear in mind. I mean, it's been sticky back plastic and plaster, to get them close enough and gelled enough. Now they're getting into a bit of health on that side. They're, you know, piecing together something on the offense. I mean, look at yesterday. Najee Harris, 12 carries for 18 yards. There was no running game. There was no offense, really. But still, Tomlin manages to piece it together. The players manage to execute to the plan, and the Steelers march on. You know, do I think they make the playoffs? No, I don't think they will. But they're certainly giving a good rattle, and definitely a good rattle at keeping Tomlin's amazing streak of always having a winning record, or at least a 500 record in a season alive. They'll need surgery in the offseason, but fair play to them. And the Titans, talked about the Cards stumbling. I mean, this is Bumbleland now. And the 14-team playoff scenario is definitely going to have a couple of duds or people coming in on a very, very cold streak, to say the least.
I still think the Titans can do it. There's still a lot of games left. Was like 3 games left. Look, you never know. And look, this is the thing, and I hope you boys are going to do, because I'm going off here in a minute. There was a game on Saturday night, and I hope that's going to be addressed, because Brian did mention about the Colts there. I'm sure you'll give that game its due worth, because my God, seen a lot of comments about the Titans. There's other teams in the league that are stuttering at the minute as well. So very much looking forward to watching that from an Uber in about 20 minutes. Can we very quickly look at game picks ahead of the Cleveland Browns, or the COVID Browns, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders? Game. This game was supposed to be on Sunday, wasn't it?
Saturday night.
No, Saturday night, the NFL Network doubleheader, and it kicks off in 30 minutes. 5 p.m. Eastern. I don't even know what time it is anymore. What time is it over at home? 9:30?
5 p.m. Eastern, 10 o'clock here, yeah.
Lovely. And the game is on Sky Sports as well. Well done, Sky Sports. Appreciate NFL Network. So brilliant. 6-7, 7-6. Colin, who do you have in this wonderful matchup?
Well, this is one that got pushed back, but it doesn't appear to have made too much difference to the Browns. I think they got to activate one player off of the COVID list today. Kevin Stefanski is still out. They're still down their quarterbacks, and they're missing a whole load of players. The Raiders, I mean, it has been a season to forget for all sorts of terrible reasons, but they have the opportunity to go back to 700 or to 500 to 7-7 this evening. I think they will, just given everything that the Browns are missing, and I think that will put the Steelers or the Raiders back to 500, and the Raiders and the Broncos probably fighting it out for the 3rd and 4th positions in the AFC West.
If there was ever a game where the bookmakers chasing their tail, this is the one. The Browns started -3 last week. Then that flips to -3 for the Raiders because of the COVID situation on Saturday. Then with the game being moved, it went back to the Browns being -3 because they felt that the Browns were going to get all these players back, not to be, and now it's back to the Raiders -3. So the bookies haven't got a clue. I say a lot of people haven't got a clue about how this game is going to go, but I think the Raiders are fortunate to fall in a situation where they'll probably in all likelihood win this game because of the amount of players that are out on the Browns. The only thing that would encourage the Browns, I suppose, obviously they want to win anyway, but if they were to win this game, they would go top of the division. So there's a huge momentum there for them, but I just can't see it because of the amount of players that's out. And Nick Mullen, who, he's probably the best third quarterback in the league on a roster, but I don't think he's going to have enough against the Raiders offense that on their day can be explosive, and I think they'll find a way to get the win. So Raiders for me as well.
Michael, you weren't listening earlier on when I brought up the Colts-Pats game and lauded the Colts offense and defense and Jonathan Taylor and everything. But don't worry, you want to talk about bumbling teams. I'm sure we'll get to Denver and their 4-7 record.
That's why I'm leaving this show in like 2 minutes.
Don't worry about it. We'll get to the bumbling teams. But look, these are two teams that have been bumbling through the entire season, frankly. The Raiders started hot, looked like they might be able to unite around a unique set of circumstances, to say the least. But it just hasn't happened, and they're falling off a cliff like they did last season, like they have in other seasons, with or without Chucky. And the Browns, I mean, is it a good thing that Baker Mayfield isn't playing? I mean, if Case Keenum, it is Case Keenum, isn't it? Sorry.
No, Nick Mullen.
No, Keenum. Who's their backup again?
Nick Mullen, that was at the 49ers, is going to play.
Nick Mullins, but no, Case Keenum would have played, but he's That's one. So it would have been a Case Keenum playing over Baker Mayfield an upgrade? I think maybe it would be, but unfortunately they're both out. And as you say, Nick Mullins is playing. Leeds United played a game at the weekend, and my friend described it that it was, Arsenal beat them 4-0. So when I phoned him to gloat, he said, hey, we had 7 first-team players and a bunch of kids off CBBS, which was a brilliant line. And unfortunately, the Browns have the same excuse. It's not quite kids off CBBS, but it's certainly a 3rd line, 4th line, 5th line option. They did it earlier in the season to Ernest Johnson stepping in when Chubb and Hunt were both unavailable, but there's just too many players missing, too much disruption. It's the Raiders all the way.
I feel sorry for NFL Network that had this advertised for weeks as a like a Saturday doubleheader. And I had said on the show the other night I was trying to get to Indianapolis. I'm really annoyed I didn't after the other night. It would have been nice game to watch. I actually, do you know what? I fell asleep in the 3rd quarter of the Patriots game. I have no idea what happened. They were 20-0 down. And I woke up and was like, oh, okay. What? The score was what at one point? So I'm glad I fell asleep. I had to go watch it back again. This game tonight, or this afternoon or whatever, is interesting because, nobody's given the Browns a chance here. But the reality is, we've gave Baker Mayfield enough guff, and we've give Case Keenum enough guff as well on this show. If Nick Mullins goes in tonight, and if that offense can do enough in the sense of they get the ball to maybe David Njoku, and there's another guy as well. His name's out of my head. Harrison Bryant. David Njoku, Harrison Bryant. These are sleeper fantasy guys from 2-3 years ago. They never do enough, but tonight could be the night that they actually play up. The reality is this is all on Nick Chubb and a combination of the Browns stopping that Raiders offense. The Raiders are the most inconsistent team that I'm aware of, apart from the own team that I support. So I am taking the shock. I'm taking Chubb with 2 rushing touchdowns, Mullins over 200 yards passing, Njoku with a passing touchdown, and the Browns to win it 24-21. And if anything, I know the Ravens didn't have as many COVID cases as the Browns do, nowhere near enough. But the Ravens, albeit with a better quarterback, had 12 or 13 players out yesterday and still nearly beat the Packers. Anything's possible. It's the Raiders, and I don't like the Raiders, so I'm picking the Browns.
Browns fans, the curse has been struck.
And that's me. You can do Bears Vikings at the end. I mean, don't worry about that game. It's grand. It's grand. Yeah. I mean, hopefully if the Bears win this game tonight, it might be interesting. Just before I go off, I should probably say a massive thanks to the Baltimore Ravens organization, top class organization, the way everyone was handled yesterday. And thanks in advance to the Bears this evening. Colin, please tell me there's a good feed up here now. Yeah, good. Spud.
So Soldier Field is top class, and one of the storied franchises. You will really enjoy the experience. And when it comes to the food there certainly is plenty of it. And if, unlike me, your body can actually deal with gluten, you won't go hungry. I'll guarantee you that. Mark Cockrell wouldn't go hungry.
Well, the food's good, but the football's horrible. Is that basically what you're saying there, Colin? But no, Michael, if you want to win friends and influence people, there's a great stat. They've got an article up on ESPN.com at the moment, but a great stat about QBR rating. And they've tracked QBR since 2006. And they're basically saying the worst ever QBRs over a season. Okay, worst ever in all that time. You've got Jimmy Clausen, Blaine Gabbert, Josh Rosen, and then a double 2021 treat, Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. So if you want to win friends and influence people in Chicago there, I suggest you just float that around the stadium. Any Chicago Bear fan, just share that is on a historic pace of ineptitude. And I'm sure it will go down really well in the stadium.
I will be the idiot tweeting at 3 a.m. I'm looking forward to it. I know you boys are staying up. Big game.
Absolutely.
I can't believe there weren't any Broncos QBs on that list, Mark, to be honest.
I was waiting for it. I was like, Drew Lock, Teddy Britton.
I thought that's where he was going.
But very, very best luck. I think you're going to have an impromptu show tomorrow night. I'll try and do what Colin done and pop on from the airport. I can't guarantee it. My main priority is just to get back into the country at the minute, boys. So see you in a bit and enjoy the game tonight, or the games tonight. I'm just going to talk really slowly to kicked off.
Yeah, we'll
one last thing. If Tom Palisero's on, Mark, I'm going to tell him that was you that said about the mouse or about the trousers or what. Yeah, I don't know if he's at the game trying to get. Try and get him.
Tell him I defended his honor basically with his colleague. I'm trying to remember who was on. But anyway, Michael, enjoy the game tonight. We'll continue with the Sunday wrap up, and at the very end, we will wrap up with the Bears Vikings. So good luck and enjoy the game.
Good luck, Michael.
Right, then continuing on the games then, gents. Texans versus Jags is one we should probably touch on, if only briefly, just because of the monumental impact of the game. The good times didn't necessarily flow back to Jacksonville, but they did end up with the number one pick after the game finished. Colin, why wasn't just all urban then? There's still other problems in Jacksonville?
Yeah, evidently it wasn't all urban. It was also I saw a tweet saying that talent deficit also played a significant part. You would have to question how they beat the Bills, but they somehow managed it. But in fairness to the Texans, I suppose for me, what I took away from this is there is going to be a playoff team that regrets not trading for Brandon Cooks because he is a serious weapon, and it doesn't seem to matter who the QB is. He manages to get open, and his pace leaves defenders just kind of trailing. So it was an interesting one. Obviously, this was a battle about probably the number one overall pick, but we all kind of thought, oh, definitely the Jags will surely get some sort of bounce. And that wasn't just our show. This was like league-wide. Everyone thought, surely, they'll get the bounce off of this. But no, it wasn't to be. And the Texans get the win, and with Davis Mills as well. So for the Jags, where to next? And I saw a lot of talk about Byron Leftwich this in the past couple of days. I'm really intrigued after the Urban Meyer debacle what way they'll go on in terms of the next head coach.
The side point from the game, I don't know if you've read Urban Meyer's press statement that came out yesterday, or the interview in which he done, basically saying he was heartbroken and he was devastated, and it was one of the most significant roles he's had in his career, and he wants people to, see that he did really want to make it work, all the things you'd expect them to say. And I actually thought then of David Culley, because going into the season, we were all very critical of how the Texans were running the show, in particular the owners, and obviously the GMs coming from the page. But we haven't had any situation like the way the Jags have been run this season. And what I mean by that is very few players, if anybody, has come out giving out about the Texans. They've had a difficult season. They've hardly won a few games. But everybody, for large parts, they're a poor side. But for a majority of the games where they could be in it, they were in it, and essentially because of the coach that was there. And we all thought he was a one-hit wonder. He'd be there this year and gone. I don't believe he's going to be gone at the end of the season. They've got a lot of rebuilding. But it's nice to see a team who struggled all season go out and have a performance like that against a team essentially who's gone the complete opposite way to it, in terms of the struggles and all the things that have come with that. So, yeah, good win for the Texans. And back to what we said at the start of the season, they'll probably win 4 games this season. Aren't they now 3? They might get one more before the season's out. I think that's what we said on the...
Almost bang on, Brian, but I still think Culley's one and done. And there's
think
still
he'd be
the
going,
biggest
yeah?
question for the entire franchise is, what do we do with a problem like Deshaun Watson?
Well, I think that's a given, but I don't think Culley will be the one that takes the hit, in that situation, because others in the organisation have ran the place ragged. He's been left with nothing, and he's done a reasonably good job. Can't see why they get rid of him. Who's going to take that job?
Well, look, I said it was a weekend where certain teams had a very, very good weekend. I mean, we mentioned the Packers. You could say the Texans, kind of getting another win, being happy, although they messed up the draft position a little bit. But maybe one of the sweetest wins of the weekend is if you are a Cincinnati Bengals fan, because not only did your win launch you into the playoff places, and in fact, the head of the AFC North, but it actually knocked the Ravens entirely out of the playoff seedings at the same time. So that double whammy was very nice. Very enjoyable for them in a bit of a turgid affair, let's be honest about it, 15-10. But the team that lost that game, Colin, I forget who they were playing again, 10 something?
I'm not particularly surprised. And the Broncos show once again on the offensive side of the ball, just horrific, just awful. And it doesn't matter who's at QB. I mean, it's hard to believe that Broncos country had a civil war over Teddy Bridgewater, and, good to see Teddy's out of hospital and getting well. But Teddy's not a franchise QB in the league. Drew Lock is not a franchise QB in the league. It doesn't matter who the Broncos put in at QB. They just don't score points. And to score 10 at home is just appalling in 2021. The Bengals got it done, and aided and abetted by the Broncos offense that just struggled to move the ball, and some terrible play calling by Pat Shermer, who just continues to baffle. You called it out earlier, Mark, and I did comment. Tip the Bengal was disgusted by Bradley Chubb's behavior, and yeah, he's right. But I did say it last night that there's no excuses for it. So I don't think anyone in Broncos country is making any excuses. It wasn't right. It shouldn't have done it. It did have, and I'm not saying it because of the pitch, it did have shades of Gronkowski a few years back, is what it reminded me of. And I think probably a bit of frustration that you were seeing there. Chubb had a number of run-ins with teammates over the course of the summer. So it's something that can simmer, but it's just not acceptable for him to do that. For the Broncos, another franchise where, it's given the 7th seed. It's the 7th seed that has allowed this to kind of hang about. This is a team that if they stumbled into the playoffs, they like, how many points could they realistically score against, some of the better teams? It's back to the drawing board for me. It can't come quickly enough. For the Bengals, I think they have they still have work to do. But Joe Burrow is in stark contrast to what the Broncos have had over the last 5 years. He is a franchise QB, and if they can put the pieces around him, they could go on to build quite a successful team there, I think.
Going into this game, I picked the Bengals because, albeit the bottom were on the same record, I felt, having watched them, albeit they lost 2 games in a row at home, the 49ers and the Chargers, they came back very strong in that Chargers game before losing. Similar enough last week. I felt they, as the season has gone on, seem to be better positioned to go to the playoffs rather than the Broncos. And I think that's a fair point in which Colin has made. This 7th seed is thrown open for a lot of teams. I mean, the Steelers are, what are they, 7-7-1 or whatever it is, and they're still hanging around. So, yeah, I can understand why people would still feel that game yesterday was a wild card game potentially, but I felt that the right team won in terms of who's going to come out of the season as, in terms of what they believe is a successful season, and obviously trying to go in the right direction. I felt in a weird way the Broncos season was summed up by that play in the fourth quarter. Locke fumbles it. You've got a quarterback situation all year long. Is Teddy the right guy in the long run? Probably not. Locke certainly isn't. You then get the ball back. You then he fumbles, you get the ball back, only to have that. It was reversed again. The season, there's so many ups and downs. Sometimes it looks like it's going in the right direction, then it quickly goes the wrong direction. Look, it's a difficult game because it was there for the winning. You could say for large parts, and went through that touchdown, they went 10-9 up. I thought maybe the momentum was changing, but they quickly eroded that with that touchdown to Tyler Boyd very quickly, which was a huge giveaway. Bear in mind, they're just taking the lead. Look, Bengals are top of the division. They'll be keen in this season's game. Next week for the Broncos, it's the Raiders, and now it's really, who finishes best within the division. I might.
Well, Brian, we were calling out, and that's an underrated aspect of this game. We're calling out the Who Dat Nation with the Saints earlier run. The Who Day Nation, the Bengals fans, Who Day on offense, because they didn't turn up either. This was a close game because Mixon wasn't dominating. Joe Burrow is a talent, but he was 157 yards. They were struggling. When I say this was tough sledding, this was super tough sledding. And so the Bengals will need that offense to click a lot better than it did against the Broncos, who, in fairness, Colin, I'm not saying this to have a pop, have had a bit of an overrated defense this year. They've been exploited at times. The Bengals should have been able to move the ball better than they did. They won the game, but you can't take solace out of saying it was a comprehensive performance or something, anything like that. So they need to up their game further if they want to make a splash in the playoffs. And on a serious note, yes, I called out the Bradley Chubb thing, and you're absolutely right. It did remind me of the Rob Gronkowski hit on Tre'Davious White, which is why I say I can't wait for his suspension, because they're the exact type of hits that should be legislated out effectively by the NFL. A fine isn't going to do it on that. You've got to send that message. They did that to Gronk before. I think they should do it to Chubb. And especially with the week that's in it, few things that happened this week. You see what happened to Teddy Bridgewater. You see Donald Parham on Thursday night in the Rams game. And then even the very heartbreaking news for Ryan Kelly, who lost the Colts center, who didn't play in the Colts-Pats game. He and his wife sadly lost their unborn child. And Belichick, when he did his post-game press, it was the first thing he called out. It was like, our hearts go out to Ryan Kelly. Sometimes there's little things that do remind you, hey, it's more than just a game as well. There's more important things than this. Like Bill Paisley, I'm sorry, Bob Paisley got it wrong. You said football isn't a matter of life and death. It's much more important than that. He's wrong. There's much more important things than football at times. And this weekend and some of those injuries and things happening just remind you of that as well.
Obviously, that is very true, Mark. What I found interesting was, and we've talked about it, NFL officiating has got to do better. Nothing happens on the Chubb play, and Tim Patrick gets called for taunting. They're spending so much time on taunting. The real stuff is getting missed, and this is a league that does so many things right. And I've talked about it. I've praised the competition committee in terms of what they've done around parity, and they continue to do that really well. But they have got to sort out officiating because it has got to improve. I know right now ratings are through the roof, but eventually people are just going to get annoyed if they keep missing stuff, if the inconsistency is there, if you don't know week to week what is roughing the passer, what's a catch, etc., etc., etc.
The only thing I'd say on the taunting is there is a bit of consistency there. So he got taunted, he got called yesterday for pointing at the player, and Hilaire did a similar against the Cowboys in Kansas City a few weeks ago. Exact same kind of scenario, pointed, flag calls. So at least it's not a case of one's called one week and the other isn't. Colin, speaking of Cowboys, we haven't got the comment come up, but Fred has actually sent a note into us saying, is there any chance Colin would move, which I would call to the dark side, and support the Cowboys? So you get a bit of a playoff run, might be one and done though.
Well, just before we get onto the Cowboys and AOB of any other games, the final one I just want to mention on the refs. He was not, I have to preface this with making excuses in any way, shape, or form, but Bill Belichick did call out in his press conference the scuffle that occurred in the Colts-Pats game. Had no issue with the two players being ejected, but he asked a pretty legitimate question when you look back on it. He said, why wasn't T.Y. Hilton ejected? Because T.Y. Hilton pushes over a referee.
Yeah,
it's an automatic ejection. It's blatant as hell. And Belichick is like, this isn't the reason we lost the game. But he's like, genuinely, New York has looked at that, and how have they not come to a determination on that? So to your point about consistency of officiating, Colin, it doesn't get more consistent even when New York spends multiple minutes looking at something to try and get right. So anyway, and again, let me reiterate, fair play to the Colts, well-deserved win, very deserved. I'm not making any excuses as a Pats fan. I'll just have to take my 7-game winning streak and put it in the back cupboard. Gents, other games that went on the weekend, obviously, maybe less intense than the games we looked at, but there's obviously storylines in every NFL game. Any other comments or any other business you want to raise in relation to the weekend?
Well, I kind of touched on it earlier. Sorry, Colin, I'm just jumping ahead here. But the Cowboys have moved up to number 2 seed. And I joked there that it could be one and done. I certainly think they need to get that offense working again. Dak Prescott seems very off. He struggled. It's been called up. He's been struggling for a few weeks. I watched majority of the Giants game yesterday with Red Zone on at the same time. And the Giants defense played well again yesterday. They've been playing consistently well for the past while. I know last week in LA they got the doors blown off them, but played well yesterday. He held the Cowboys to 21 points. Part of me saying, is that because the Cowboys are struggling or because the Giants defense is actually holding their own? But I think for the Cowboys, who are now having jumped up to the number 2 seed and potentially will play, I think it's Washington or Saints are there at the moment. Washington will jump back into 7, or even the Eagles might jump back into 7. They may get an easier game on wildcard weekend, but will they go all the way? Unless they get back to that offense we saw earlier in the season when they were putting up 30-odd points, I don't see it. I think even Fred, our loyal Cowboys fans, even called it out today, a bit of a social ribbing, shall we say, of the fact that the Cowboys beat the Giants.
It was, it was a strange week. I think I saw Scott Hansen tweeting that it might have been the fewest or amongst the fewest touchdowns that they've had in the red zone era, which is quite something. The Dolphins find ways to get it done, and I think that may be the story of the AFC East. If you're going to look at things, the Patriots have found ways to win. The Bills at times have found ways to win. It hasn't always been pretty. And the same now with the Dolphins. They go out and have quite the run of games. So it'll be interesting. I think there's obviously a small matter of a big game next weekend, Mark, that will decide that particular division. But I think you have to give credit again to Brian Flores and what he's doing. He's finding ways to win. And it is after the start that they had, it's quite the turnaround for the Dolphins.
Here, 1-7 to 7 and all, 7 equal. It probably won't get him into the playoffs still. Looks like in the AFC, you're going to need 10 wins at least. But it certainly keeps him in the conversation. When we could touch on the other 2 games we didn't touch on, the Bills and Panthers, 49ers and Falcons, to me, followed very similar patterns. It looked like the Bills and the 49ers were going to make hard going of those games. They were going to leave an inferior team around. And then they eventually woke up, put the foot down a lot more, and drove things home, both winning almost by identical storylines for the 31-14, 31-13, I believe, in the game. So kind of similar patterns. Bills obviously will be going to the playoffs one way or the other, and the 49ers very much in prime position, keeping their noses ahead in that wildcard race, and maybe still an opportunity to catch up on the Rams and potentially the Cards. I can't see them necessarily winning the division, but they'll be a decent enough record. And again, like the Colts, maybe that team people don't really want to face in the playoffs. But for me, gents, the start of the weekend, we are now about to close out week 15 of the NFL. And so far, we still only know one team for sure who has made the playoffs. Only one team is secure. That is the Green Bay Packers in their playoff spots. We can imagine a few more will make it quite comfortably, but just shows the league parity that they all strive for is certainly all well and alive at this point in time. Gentlemen, with that, though, we'll turn to a game which doesn't involve parity, which doesn't involve any kind of, well, on one side of the ball, potentially quality, and another side of the ball is as schizophrenic as it gets. The late game tonight on Monday Night Football, not our rescheduled Raiders Browns game, but the true, if you like, Monday Night Football. The Minnesota Vikings at Soldier Field and the Chicago Bears re-energizing, restarting their ages-old rivalry in the NFC North. Strange stat, no one who's ever won the NFC North has actually won the Super Bowl. I saw that today, which was a random one because the Bears won after realignment, and when the Packers won, they won as a wild card when they created NFC North. So, you know, if you're a Packers fan, there's the curse for you. You're going to win the NFC North, and you're not going to win the Super Bowl. But these two teams won't win the NFC North. One of them allegedly has to win this game. Colin, can you break it down for us, and what do you expect to see and who you got to win?
Well, look, Mark, it's been obviously a crazy almost 2 years now in the COVID pandemic. We have seen so much happen across the globe. We've seen so much happen in the NFL world in this season. And yet the biggest surprise or the biggest shock I had in these last 2 years was Brian O'Leary messaged me one day last week saying, Matt Nagy, there's talk that he might get to stay on as Bears head coach. I nearly dropped the phone. I could not believe it. And that it makes, I just don't get it. I think the Bears have talked about it. They're a storied franchise. I really like them. I think they have, unlike you, I think they have some talent there. I really do. You look at what they have. I think he is an albatross around this team's neck. And I think the sooner he's gone, they can actually begin to develop Justin Fields. They can begin like he's just where do you begin with Nagy and everything that he gets wrong? Every time I feel like every time Vance Joseph stepped to the microphone, I cringed. It's got to be the same for Bears fans because you just know it's going to be terrible. He's probably going to roll back on it within 24 hours. Andy Dalton is our starter. Justin Fields is our starter. Oh, we're back to Andy. I know Justin is back in again. I mean, like, you know, I talk about QB hokey cokey. Matt Nagy does it across the board. It's that he's the reason that the Bears are at 4-9 because I think they have talent to be a lot better than they are. And on the other side, you have Mike Zimmer, who I think at this point is holding back the Vikings. I think there's serious talent there. I think they have in Justin Jefferson one of the top weapons in the league. He is absolutely fantastic. And I think that the Vikings are still in with a shot, given everything that's gone on. They're still in with a shot of making the playoffs. I think they will have enough tonight to get the win, to go back to 500 and to make it interesting over the course of the last 3 games. So it's Vikings for me.
So to shed a little bit of light on that situation, and this kind of to me shows the dysfunction of the Bears. They want, and you may remember this player, Mark Trace Armstrong, he played for the Bears a long, long time ago. They want him to be the head of football operations and essentially come in and figure out where the problems lie with the Bears. And that potentially would involve getting a new head coach. He now is actually a coaching agent and he represents Jim Nagy. So what are you going to do? You're going to fire your own clients? No. So if he takes over, I can see why Jim Nagy would be given another year. It just doesn't make any sense. Why would you even do that? His whole role is compromised straight away. You know, he represents the head coach as an agent, but he's going to be the head of football operations. Come on, give me a break. Mike Florio was the one who ran with that story that he felt that they might just leave it as it is and run it back for another year because they've no 4th round pick next year. So where's the rebuild start? I'm going to go with the Vikings in this game, but I'm not convinced, actually, to be honest. I think this game will be a lot closer than people will think, because we saw last week the Bears did a reasonably good game. They had a reasonably good game in Lambeau against the Packers. I know the Packers won by 15 points in the end. Quite a lot closer than people thought. I know there was that crazy second quarter where there was 35 points, I believe, Mark, something like that. It was an NFL record. But maybe it was the Packers special teams who kept dysfunctioning all night that allowed the Bears to hang around. But the Bears played reasonably well on offense. I can still see them doing that. This Vikings team, what's the old saying, Mark? Don't back the Vikings. Don't back against them, or don't back for them. Leave this game alone and go to bed and watch it in the morning. The Vikings may, because Dalvin Cook is a great running back, and they might just use him and expose a weak Bears defense against the run. But I'm not comfortable to pick Vikings.
You should never be comfortable about anything to do with the Minnesota Vikings. I think that's just generally the rule of thumb, especially if money or gambling is involved in any way, shape, or form. Colin, I didn't say anything to do with Minnesota, so you know.
I like all my in-laws to tell you, like everyone is just like they know it. They know it there. I mean, it's funny because I spent a lot of time up in Minnesota and in Michigan, and just like Michigan is just the resignation. There's no hope. Everyone just is despondent there. But the Vikings, you know, they you know, that the old quote from that just when I thought I was out, they dragged me back in, and that's what the Vikings do year on year.
Well, I mean, if they drag you back in tonight, you know, and they get to 7-7, they're right there with the Saints, who currently occupy that 7th wildcard seed after that upset victory against the Bucs. So they'll be right there in relation to it. But look at their last 4 games. Yes, we get to play the Bears twice. Whoop-de-doo. We also get to play the Rams and the Packers. It is not an easy run-in. So if they're going to, I don't know, squeak in by their bums into that 7th seed, they're going to need to win tonight, and they're going to need to beat the Bears in Week 18 as well. Brian, I did notice it, but maybe you want to correct something.
Apologies. I said Jim Nagy, and Jim Nagy, now in fairness, has been on the show. He obviously heads up the Senior Bowl, and we've had some conversation this week about potentially coming back on the show in the new year. So he was on my brain. Matt Nagy is the head coach of the Bears, who's been represented by Trace Armstrong and not Jim.
We knew you didn't want to get Jim Nagy fired, and it was all about Matt, so it's all good. But look, you know, this game tonight, no, I don't trust the Bears. No, I don't think they've got a vast amount of talent in the team. I think they've got obviously talented running back. Allen Robinson is a wide receiver that now doesn't need to be freed. He needs to be refound in the first instance. I mean, we're sending search passes out for him, Colin. I'm concerned there is a missing person in the Chicago area generally. So Vikings have to win it, frankly, to have any chance. Like I said, with the run-in they've got, I will pick the Vikings. I don't feel good about it. I don't trust them. I don't trust it in any way, shape, or form. But I cannot make a viable case, honestly, for the Bears to do anything constructive for the rest of eternity. No, I'm getting a bit exaggerated there. The Vikings will win. They're the better team. And Michael has also, is he going to make it a full house? And is he going to be very popular in Soldier Field? Yes, he has made it a full house. So hopefully the Bears media will give him a nice warm welcome with that.
Well, given what you just said, I'm going to tell Mike Singletary where you live, Mark.
Yeah, okay. They did do. No, I mean, look, I'd like to see the Bears be competent again, but you've got to get rid of Pace as well as Nagy to even start getting there. And I'm sorry, I think he's a great athlete, but I am not sold on Justin Fields yet. Maybe with a lot more talent around him, a better line, all these things we can properly assume and assess him. But it hasn't been an auspicious start, to say the least. But yes, he deserves time, and we will see in relation to it. We won't call him Mitch Trubisky yet. That's a pain unfair. Gentlemen, the game has started. 10 o'clock game on a Monday night is a rare pleasure, so we'll call it there for tonight. Thank you all for joining us as always. Thank you to our partners at Matchbook Betting Exchange and at Trust Gaming as always. Always a pleasure to see you. And from us at the Irish NFL Show, it's good night.
Good night, guys.
Enjoy the games.
Enjoy the games.